She had one chance to escape poverty, a visa interview that could change her life forever. But on the morning of the appointment, she saw a little girl trapped in danger and made a choice no one else would. She ran to save the child, not knowing the girl was the only daughter of one of the richest billionaires in the country. By the time she arrived, her interview was gone, her dream was shattered. But the betrayal waiting at home was even worse. Her cruel stepmother had stolen her visa documents and handed them to her own daughter, sending the wrong girl abroad to live the life meant for her. Broken, humiliated, and forgotten, the poor girl disappeared from everyone's memory. Or so they thought. 5 years later, the billionaire discovered the truth behind the stranger who had saved his daughter that day. And when he found out what her stepmother had done, he didn't just repay kindness. He returned with power, justice, and a secret that shook the entire family. What he did next left the stepmother and her daughter homeless, and proved that one good deed can change destiny forever. Amara Okafor never forgot the sound of the embassy gate closing. It was not loud, it did not crash like thunder or shake the street. It was only a metal gate sliding back into place, guarded by a man who had looked at her sweaty face, torn sleeve, dusty shoes, and trembling hands with the tired indifference of someone who had seen too many people arrive too late. "Interview time has passed," he had said. "Please," Amara begged. "I was on my way. There was an accident. A child. Come back when you receive a new appointment." But Amara knew there would be no new appointment. She had sold almost everything she owned to prepare for that day. Her late father's wristwatch, her mother's sewing machine, even the tiny gold earrings she had promised to keep for her daughter, Kira, until the girl turned 16. That visa interview was not just travel. It was food, school fees, a clean room without leaking ceilings, a future where her daughter did not have to fall asleep hungry while pretending she was only saving appetite for morning. And she had lost it because she had stopped for a stranger's child. The little girl had been trapped inside a smoking school van after a careless driver struck it at the roadside. People gathered, shouting. Some lifted phones. Others said someone should call for help. But the girl's small palms had slapped against the window, and Amara saw fear in her eyes. Something inside Amara moved before her mind could count the cost. She dropped the blue folder holding her visa documents, kicked through broken glass already cracked by the crash, wrapped her scarf around her arm, and pulled the girl through the narrow opening. The girl clung to her neck as if Amara was the whole world. "What is your name?" the child whispered. "Amara's." "My daddy will thank you," the little girl said, coughing. Amara had almost smiled. Rich or poor, children believed fathers could fix anything. Then sirens came. A crowd swallowed the scene. Someone took the child from her arms. Amara grabbed her folder from the dust, not noticing that one document had slipped loose, and ran until her lungs burned. By the time she reached the embassy, destiny had already turned its face away. When she returned home, her stepmother, Clarissa, was sitting in the parlor as if she had been waiting to see a show. Clarissa had married Amara's father when Amara was 14. She came into the house with perfume, silk scarves, and a daughter named Vanessa, who had never washed a plate without announcing it like a national tragedy. At first, Amara's father believed Clarissa was strict because she cared. He never lived long enough to discover she was cruel because cruelty made her feel powerful. After his death, the house changed. Amara became the servant. Vanessa became the princess. Kira, Amara's little daughter, became that child, as if saying her name would stain the air. On the evening Amara lost her interview, Clarissa looked at her torn sleeve and smiled. "You missed it?" she asked. Amara's heart tightened. "How did you know?" Vanessa appeared from the hallway wearing Amara's best shoes. That was when Amara noticed the locked drawer under the television stand was open. The drawer where she had kept her passport copy, embassy letter, invitation from the training institute abroad, sponsor forms, medical clearance, and every paper she had guarded like treasure. The blue folder in Amara's hands suddenly felt too light. "Where are my documents?" she whispered. Clarissa stood slowly. "Your documents? A poor, careless girl who cannot even arrive on time does not deserve such opportunities." Amara turned to Vanessa. "What did you do?" Vanessa smiled without shame. "I did what winners do. I used what was available." It took Amara several minutes to understand the full betrayal. Clarissa had taken the original visa packet from the drawer that morning, along with the appointment confirmation and identity forms. With the help of a corrupt travel agent, she had pushed Vanessa into the process using altered paperwork and a copy of Amara's sponsor letter. Vanessa would leave the country under a lie, carrying the future Amara had bled for. "No," Amara said, "they will find out." Clarissa laughed. "By the time anyone finds out, Vanessa will already be gone, and who will believe you, a poor single mother who missed her own interview?" Amara lunged toward the drawer, but Clarissa slapped her hand away. "You should have gone straight to your interview," Clarissa hissed. "Instead, you wanted to play hero." Those words entered Amara like a curse. That night, while Vanessa packed Amara's dream into a borrowed suitcase, Kira sat beside her mother on the floor of their tiny back room. She was only 5 then, with bright eyes and a serious little face that made people think she understood more than she should. "Mama," Kira said, touching the cut on Amara's wrist, "did the little girl live?" Amara swallowed the bitterness in her throat. "Yes." "Then you did not lose everything." Amara looked at her daughter. In Kira's hand was a small silver butterfly pin. The rescued child had been holding it when she clung to Amara, and somehow it had caught on Amara's scarf. Amara had meant to return it, but in the chaos, she had forgotten. She closed Kira's fingers around it. "Maybe one day," Amara said softly, "this will find its way back to her." She did not know then that the butterfly pin was engraved with the initials LB. Lily Blackwood, the daughter of Dorian Blackwood. In newspapers, Dorian Blackwood was always photographed in black suits, stepping out of glass buildings, shaking hands with ministers, opening hospitals, buying companies, and donating money in amounts Amara could not imagine. He was called ruthless by enemies and brilliant by admirers. But to his children, he was simply Daddy, a man who smelled faintly of cedarwood and old books, and who had once stayed awake 3 nights beside his daughter's hospital bed after the crash. Lily survived because of a stranger whose name she remembered only in fragments. "Amara," she told her father again and again, "she had a blue scarf. She sang to me. She said I should breathe." Dorian searched. His staff went to the accident scene. They asked hospitals. They checked reports. They found witnesses who contradicted one another. Some said the rescuer was a nurse. Others said a market woman. One man insisted she entered a yellow taxi. Another claimed she ran toward the embassy road. There were too many poor women named Amara in the city, and too few people paid attention to poor women unless they owed money. After 3 months, the search went cold. Dorian kept the newspaper clipping about the accident in his study. Lily kept asking whether heroes could disappear. His first wife, Marion, told her, "Sometimes people who save others don't wait around for applause." Years passed. Vanessa sent photographs from abroad, smiling in winter coats, standing beside fountains, posing outside buildings she never would have entered if Amara's papers had not carried her there. Clarissa printed the photographs and hung them in the parlor. "See what my daughter has become," she would say when visitors came. "Vanessa was born for greatness." Amara never answered. After the betrayal, she left the house before dawn one morning, carrying Kira on her back and one bag in her hand. Clarissa called her ungrateful. Vanessa, already abroad, sent a voice note laughing that Amara should enjoy local life. Amara moved to the edge of the city, into one room behind a mechanic's yard. She washed clothes. She cleaned offices at night. She sold bean cakes before sunrise. When Kira began school, Amara would sit outside the classroom after work, still smelling of soap and smoke. Listening to her daughter answer questions faster than the teacher could write them. Kira loved numbers. She saw patterns in everything: cracks in walls, raindrops on zinc roofs, the price of tomatoes, the rhythm of passing buses. At 7, she corrected a shopkeeper's wrong change. At 8, she helped older children with fractions. By 10, she could explain algebra in a way that made struggling students feel clever instead of ashamed. Numbers are not scary, she would say. They are just shy. You have to ask them nicely. Amara would laugh whenever she heard that, but sometimes the laugh broke in the middle. Kira had inherited her hope and sharpened it into a blade. 5 years after the embassy gate closed, Amara had built a small life out of ruins. It was not easy, but it was honest. She rented a cleaner room near St. Agnes Community School, where Kira earned a partial scholarship. She cooked for construction workers on weekends. She mended uniforms. She helped at a church pantry. And every month, no matter how little she had, she put a few notes into an envelope labeled Kira Future. The past did not leave her. It only learned to walk quietly behind her. Then, on a rainy Thursday, the Blackwoods entered her life again. Amara was crossing the road near the community school when she heard the scream. A black SUV had stopped badly at the curb. A boy of about 9 stepped out, distracted, clutching a tablet. At the same moment, a delivery tricycle swerved to avoid a pothole and skidded toward him. People shouted. Amara dropped the basket of food she was carrying and ran. She grabbed the boy by the shoulders and pulled him back so sharply they both fell onto the wet pavement. The tricycle missed them by a breath and crashed into a stack of empty crates. The boy's tablet shattered. His school bag spilled open. A mathematics workbook slid across the rain. For 1 second, no one moved. Then the boy began to shake. Amara sat up, ignoring the sting in her elbow. "Look at me," she said gently. "You are safe, breathe with me." His eyes were wide and wet. "My mom used to say that." Amara froze at the sadness in his voice. "What is your name?" "Noah." The driver of the SUV ran over, pale with fear. "Master Noah, are you hurt? So will kill me, Madam Will." "I'm fine," Noah whispered, though he was not. Amara picked up his workbook and brushed water from the cover. Inside, she saw unfinished equations, several crossed-out answers, and a teacher's note, "Needs extra help. Avoid careless errors." Kira, who had been waiting under the school awning, hurried over. "Mama." "I'm okay," Amara said. "Help me gather his things." Kira picked up the workbook and glanced at the page. "You forgot to divide both sides," she told Noah automatically. Noah blinked through his tears. "What?" "This one," Kira pointed. "You moved the 6 but forgot the 2. That is why the answer became angry." Despite himself, Noah gave a small laugh. It was the first clue, though no one knew it then. The driver thanked Amara quickly, almost fearfully, then rushed Noah into the SUV. Before the door closed, Noah looked back at Kira. "Can you show me?" he asked. Kira lifted the damp workbook. "Tomorrow, don't let your numbers bully you before then." Noah smiled. When Amara returned home that evening, she found the basket of food ruined, her elbow swollen, and her money for the day gone. Still, she was strangely peaceful. Saving the boy had felt like stepping into an old fire and coming out alive. But the next day brought the money. It happened near the same road. Amara was sweeping outside the pantry when a leather envelope fell from the back seat of a parked luxury car. The car pulled away before she could shout. The envelope landed half open in a puddle. Inside were bundles of crisp notes wrapped in bank bands. $50,000. For a moment, the world became silent. Amara had never held that much money. She had never even stood near that much money. Her rent was late. Kira needed new shoes. The school had sent a warning about unpaid fees. The church pantry roof leaked. Her cooking stove smoked so badly her eyes burned every night. She could have walked away. No one saw her pick it up. Rain tapped gently on the envelope, as if counting time. Then she noticed a business card tucked inside, Dorian Blackwood Foundation. Beneath, it was a handwritten note about emergency medical grants for children. Amara closed her eyes. A memory rose, Clarissa saying, "Poor people stay poor because they are foolish." Another memory followed, Kira at 5, asking if the rescued girl had lived. Amara tucked the envelope under her arm and went straight to the address on the card. The Blackwood Foundation occupied 6 floors of a silver building downtown. The lobby smelled of polished stone and lilies. Amara felt every eye on her faded dress and worn sandals, but she lifted her chin. "I found something that belongs to Mr. Blackwood," she told the receptionist. Security came, then an assistant, then another assistant, sharper than the first. They counted the money twice in a glass office while Amara sat with her hands folded in her lap. Finally, a tall man entered. Dorian Blackwood was older than his photographs, or perhaps more tired. His hair showed silver at the temples. His eyes were steady, the kind of eyes that made excuses feel childish. But when he saw Amara sitting there, a strange expression crossed his face, so brief she almost missed it. "Recognition without memory." "You found this?" he asked. "Yes, sir." "And you brought it back?" "It was not mine." His assistant whispered something about the missing grant money and how disastrous it would have been if it had disappeared. Dorian's gaze remained on Amara. "What is your name?" "Amara Okafu." The name struck him softly, like a distant bell. Amara. For 5 years, that name had lived in his house like an unfinished prayer. Before he could speak, the office door opened and Noah Blackwood walked in wearing his school uniform. He stopped when he saw Amara. "You," he said. Dorian turned. "You know her." Noah hurried to Amara. "She saved me yesterday from the tricycle." The room changed. Dorian looked at Amara again, and this time his eyes held something heavier than gratitude. "You saved my son." Amara lowered her gaze. "Anyone would have helped." "No," Dorian said quietly, "not everyone does." Behind Noah, a woman entered in cream silk and diamonds, her perfume arriving before her smile. Priscilla Blackwood was Dorian's second wife. She had married him 18 months after Marion's death, at a time when the newspapers said the billionaire needed stability and society said his children needed a mother. But Lily never called her mother. Noah tried once and cried afterward. Priscilla saw Amara, then saw Dorian looking at Amara, then saw Noah standing close to her. Her smile hardened. "Who is this?" she asked. Dorian explained quickly, but Priscilla did not hear the explanation. She heard only danger. A poor woman had saved Noah. A poor woman had returned a fortune. A poor woman had made Dorian look at her with respect. Respect to Priscilla was more threatening than beauty. Amara stood. "I should go." Dorian reached for his checkbook. "Please wait, I want to reward you." "No, sir. At least allow us to cover your medical treatment from yesterday." "I am fine." Priscilla's eyes narrowed. Dorian took out a card. "Then take this. If you ever need anything, call me directly." Amara hesitated. Refusing would be rude. Accepting felt dangerous. She took the card. Priscilla watched her fingers touch Dorian's card and decided the story in her own mind. By evening, her 2 sisters knew where Amara lived. Celeste and Bianca arrived in a white car after sunset. They were dressed for a party, but their faces carried the excitement of people sent to commit cruelty and call it loyalty. Amara had just finished cooking rice for Kira when someone kicked the door. "Open," a woman's voice snapped. "We know you are inside." Kira looked up from Noah's mathematics workbook. He had given it to her after school, shyly asking if she could explain the problems. She was halfway through writing notes in the margin. Amara opened the door only a little. "Can I help you?" Celeste pushed it wider. "So this is where Dorian's new charity case lives." Bianca laughed. "Charity case, please. She is trying to become Madam of the Mansion." Amara's stomach tightened. "You have the wrong idea." "We have the right idea," Celeste said. Stay away from Priscilla's husband. I do not know him like that. Bianca stepped forward and shoved the pot of rice from the table. Food spilled across the floor. Kira gasped. Mama. Amara moved in front of her daughter. Please leave. They mocked her clothes, her room, her poverty, her daughter's schoolbooks. When Amara tried to stop Bianca from grabbing the Blackwood card on the table, Celeste struck her. Bianca joined in, rough hands and cruel words, enough to hurt and humiliate without leaving the kind of evidence wealthy people feared. They pushed her down, dragged her pride across the floor, and filmed pieces of it while laughing. Tell your mother to stop chasing rich men, Celeste told Kira. Kira stood shaking, but her voice came out clear. My mother returned money your family lost. She saved Noah. She is better than all of you. Bianca lifted a hand toward the child. Amara rose so fast, the women stepped back. You can touch me, she said, voice low, but if you touch my daughter, I will forget to be afraid. Something in her face made them pause. Celeste tossed Dorian's card onto the spilled rice. This is your final warning. They left as loudly as they came. For several minutes, Amara and Kira did not move. Then Kira knelt, picked up the rice pot, and began to cry silently. Amara sank beside her. I'm sorry. Kira shook her head. No, they should be sorry. In the corner, Noah's workbook lay open. On the page Kira had been explaining, she had written, what you do to one side, you must do to the other. That is how equations stay fair. Amara stared at the sentence until her eyes blurred. Fairness, such a small word, such a rare thing. The next morning, Noah did not come to school. By afternoon, he appeared at the pantry gate with a driver and a face full of worry. Kira, he called. Kira ran out. Noah, what are you doing here? He held up his workbook. You forgot to finish the last one. It was a lie, but a gentle one. He had come because he wanted to make sure they were okay. Amara hid the bruise near her cheek with powder, but children notice what adults pretend not to see. Noah saw. His expression changed. Who hurt you? Nobody, Amara said. Noah looked at Kira. Kira did not answer, but tears filled her eyes. That evening, Noah refused dinner at home. Dorian found him sitting on the floor of his room, holding the old photograph of Marion he kept beneath his pillow. She would not have let them do it, Noah whispered. Dorian sat beside him. Let who do what? Noah pressed his lips together. Noah. The boy's voice broke. Aunt Celeste and Aunt Bianca hurt Kira's mother. Dorian went still. Why would they do that? Because Priscilla said she was your girlfriend. The word landed like poison. Noah began to cry then, not loudly, but with the exhausted sorrow of a child who had been carrying too much. Mom would have known Amara is good. Mom always knew. Dorian reached for him, but Noah pulled away. Then softly from the doorway, a child's voice said, When I miss someone, my mama says I should remember what they taught me, not only that they left. Dorian turned. Kira stood there, escorted by a housekeeper who looked terrified to have allowed her inside. She had come with Noah's workbook after he forgot it at the pantry gate. Noah wiped his face. Kira. Kira stepped in carefully, as if the room were a place of grief, and she did not want to disturb it. She sat across from him and opened the workbook. Your mother helped you breathe when you were sad, right? Noah nodded. So breathe first, then we do math. Math is easier when your heart is not running everywhere. Dorian watched his son obey a little girl he had known only 2 days. Kira drew 2 columns on the page. This side is what you know, this side is what you are looking for. When you feel lost, start with what you know. Noah sniffed. What if what you know hurts? Then start with what helps. Dorian stood in the doorway, unable to speak. In that moment, he understood something he had missed since Marion died 2 years earlier. His son had been lonely inside a mansion full of people. Tutors came and went. Therapists spoke gently. Priscilla bought him expensive toys, but Kira, a child from a room behind a pantry, had done what all the adults had failed to do. She had made Noah feel safe. That night, Dorian began asking questions. He did not ask Priscilla first. Powerful men survive by knowing when a smile is a curtain. He asked the driver, the housekeeper, Noah's school guard, and finally the building security where Amara lived. By midnight, he had camera footage from the hallway outside Amara's room. It showed Celeste and Bianca entering. It showed them leaving, laughing. It showed enough. At dawn, he watched the footage twice, then called his lawyer. But before he could act, Lily came home from boarding school for the weekend. At 15, Lily Blackwood was tall, quiet, and more observant than people expected rich girls to be. The accident 5 years earlier had left her with a thin scar near her hairline and a habit of touching car windows before unlocking doors. She entered her father's study while he was staring at a report on Amara Okafor. "Dad." Dorian looked up. "Lily, you found an Amara's." He frowned. "Why do you ask?" She pointed to the file. "I saw the name." Dorian hesitated. "A woman returned money to the foundation. She also saved Noah yesterday." Lily stepped closer. "Amara what?" "Okafor." The color left Lily's face. Dorian stood. "What is it?" Lily's hand went to her necklace. Hanging from it was a tiny silver chain with nothing attached. For years, she had worn the chain where her butterfly pin used to be. "The woman who saved me," Lily whispered. "She said her name was Amara." Dorian felt the room tilt. "There are many Amaras," he said, but his voice lacked conviction. "She had a blue scarf," Lily continued. "She sang something, not a song exactly, like a mother humming to a child. I was scared, and she told me to count breaths." Dorian remembered what Noah had said. Amara told him to breathe. "Do you remember her face?" "I remember her eyes," Lily swallowed, "and there was a little cut here," she touched her own wrist, "from the glass." Dorian's file included a medical note from a clinic Amara visited after returning the money. Old scar on left wrist, recent elbow swelling. The past, which had hidden for 5 years, stepped into the room. Dorian went to Amara's home himself. He did not bring cameras. He did not bring Priscilla. He brought Lily, Noah, and one trusted assistant named Mr. Hale. Amara opened the door with caution. When she saw Dorian, she stiffened. "If this is about your wife's sisters," she said, "I do not want trouble. I only want peace." Dorian's face tightened. "You should not have had to ask for peace after helping my family." Lily stepped forward. Amara looked at her and froze. For a second, the girl in front of her was not 15. She was 10, coughing in Amara's arms, fingers clutched around a silver butterfly. "You," Amara whispered. Lily's eyes filled. "You saved me." Kira looked from Lily to her mother. "Mama." Amara turned away, shaken. "That was long ago." Dorian's voice was quiet. "You missed something that day, didn't you?" Amara said nothing. "The embassy," he said. Her shoulders trembled. Lily covered her mouth. Noah stared at Amara as if seeing her for the first time. Dorian stepped inside only after Amara allowed it. The room was small, clean, and still marked by the previous night's humiliation. A dented pot, a cracked cup, a bruise poorly hidden, Kira's math notes stacked neatly beside the bed. On the shelf, Dorian saw something silver. Lily saw it too. "My butterfly," she whispered. Kira picked it up carefully. "Mama kept it. She said one day it would find its owner." Lily took the pin with shaking fingers. On the back were the initials LB. Dorian closed his eyes. For 5 years he had searched boardrooms, hospitals, reports, and public records. The answer had been living in a room where the rain leaked through the window frame. Amara told the story slowly. The accident, the missed interview, the stolen documents, Clarissa, Vanessa, the corrupt travel agent, the laughter, the way she left home with Kira before sunrise because staying would have killed something inside her. She did not cry until she said, "I did not regret saving Lily. I regretted that kindness made it easy for wicked people to rob me." Dorian's jaw hardened. "Karma is too slow," he said. "Justice should not be." Amara looked alarmed. "Please, I am not asking you to destroy anyone." "I know," Dorian replied. "That is why I believe you." What Amara did not know was that Dorian Blackwood had already learned the danger of waiting. After Marion died, he had allowed grief to make him passive. He married Priscilla because she looked efficient beside his sadness. He ignored Lily's silence because silence was easier than confrontation. He overlooked Noah's loneliness because the house was full of tutors and staff. He had mistaken management for care. Now the bill had arrived, and it had Amara's name on it. Within 48 hours, Dorian's investigators found the first thread. The travel agent who helped Clarissa had been arrested 2 years earlier for document fraud. Under pressure, he remembered Clarissa Okafor and her daughter Vanessa. He remembered a blue folder. He remembered being paid with money from the sale of jewelry that had not belonged to Clarissa. The second thread came from Amara's late father's lawyer, an elderly man who had moved offices 3 times and kept paper files because he distrusted computers. In a dusty cabinet, beneath land deeds and old tax forms, he found a sealed document Nathaniel Okafor had signed before his death. A will. Clarissa had told everyone Nathaniel died, without one. The will left the family house and 2 plots of land to Amara. Clarissa was allowed to live there only until Amara turned 25, and Vanessa had no legal claim beyond a modest education fund Nathaniel had set aside. But Clarissa had hidden the will. Then she had used the house as collateral for loans to fund Vanessa abroad. Later, when Vanessa returned with false confidence and expensive taste, they refinanced the property again to open a boutique. The boutique failed. They borrowed more. Then Vanessa used forged proof of ownership to attract investors for a luxury rental project on Amara's land. Their life was built on theft so layered that even the walls seemed to be lying. The third thread came from the embassy archive. Vanessa had not merely used Amara's opportunity, she had used part of Amara's identity. When Dorian's legal team obtained the records, the fraud was undeniable. For the first time in years, Clarissa became afraid. She and Vanessa were living in a renovated house with marble floors, gold curtains, and a gate high enough to keep out the poor relatives they pretended not to have. Clarissa still spoke of Amara as if she were a stain from the past. Then Dorian Blackwood arrived. Not alone. He came with lawyers, court officers, police investigators, and Amara. Clarissa opened the door in a wrapper and jewels. When she saw Amara, her mouth twisted. "You," she spat, "so you finally found someone rich enough to carry your bitterness." Amara said nothing. Vanessa came down the stairs in designer sunglasses, though they were indoors. "What is this drama?" Dorian stepped forward. "This house is under legal review for fraudulently concealed inheritance, forged collateral claims, and identity theft connected to international travel documents." Clarissa laughed, but the sound cracked. "Who are you to come into my house?" "Your house?" Dorian asked. His lawyer opened a file. As the court officer read the documents, Clarissa's face changed. Vanessa snatched the papers, scanning lines she did not understand until she saw Amara's name repeated again and again. "No," Vanessa said, "this is fake." Amara finally spoke. "That is what you said about my future too." The neighbors gathered outside. Clarissa had spent years telling them Amara was irresponsible, immoral, jealous, and cursed. Now those same neighbors watched officers place notices on the gate. The property belonged to Amara. The rental project was frozen. The boutique accounts were seized pending fraud claims. Vanessa's foreign credentials were suspended for review. Clarissa's loans, taken against property she did not own, became criminal evidence. But where are we supposed to go? Clarissa cried when reality entered her bones. Amara looked at the woman who had sent her into the world with nothing. She thought of the embassy gate, the stolen folder, Kira sleeping hungry, the spilled rice, the bruises, the years Vanessa wore her life like a stolen dress. Then she said, I asked myself that same question 5 years ago. Clarissa turned to Dorian. You cannot do this, we are family. Dorian's expression was cold. Family does not steal a daughter's future and call it discipline. Vanessa pointed at Amara. She missed the interview herself. Nobody told her to stop for some random child. Lily, who had been standing behind her father, stepped forward. I was that child. The courtyard went silent. Vanessa's mouth opened, then closed. Lily held up the silver butterfly pin. She saved me while you stole from her. It was the secret that shook the entire family. Not only had Amara been robbed, she had been robbed because she saved the billionaire's daughter. The very act Clarissa mocked had become the evidence that brought Dorian Blackwood to their gate. Clarissa sank onto the marble step as if her bones had emptied. By sunset, the house was sealed. Clarissa and Vanessa left with suitcases, arguing over who had caused their downfall. For the first time in years, they stood outside a locked gate with nowhere certain to sleep. People would later say Dorian Blackwood made them homeless. The truth was simpler. Their lies had built a mansion on land that did not belong to them. Dorian only removed the lies. But justice did not stop at Clarissa's gate. Priscilla returned from a spa appointment to find Dorian waiting in the main hall with Celeste and Bianca seated stiffly on the sofa. On the table lay printed screenshots from the hallway footage, witness statements, and a copy of the medical report from Amara's clinic. Priscilla's face paled, but pride held her upright. What is this? The end of pretending, Dorian said. Celeste began to cry. Bianca blamed Celeste. Priscilla blamed jealousy, stress, misunderstanding, anything except the ugliness in her own heart. Dorian listened without expression. You sent them to harm a woman who saved my son, returned my foundation's money, and saved my daughter 5 years ago. Priscilla stared. That is impossible. It is true, Lily said from the staircase. Noah stood beside her, holding Kira's math notebook. And Kira is my friend. Priscilla looked at the children, then at Dorian. For the first time, she realized she had not only attacked a poor woman, she had attacked the one person who connected every wound in the Blackwood house. Lily's old trauma, Noah's grief, Dorian's guilt, and the memory of Marion, whose kindness had once been the soul of the family. Dorian removed his wedding ring. There will be legal consequences, he said, and there will be a divorce. Priscilla reached for him. Dorian, please, think about our reputation. I am, he replied, for once. Celeste and Bianca were charged for the assault and harassment. Priscilla's role became part of the case. Dorian did not use money to bury the scandal. He used money to make sure no one could bury Amara's truth. When reporters asked Amara how she felt, she refused to perform pain for cameras. I want my daughter to grow up knowing kindness is not weakness, she said, but I also want her to know kindness should not be unprotected. Dorian heard that line and built a foundation program around it. 6 months later, St. Agnes Community School opened the Marion Blackwood Learning Center, funded by Dorian but directed by Amara. It offered tutoring, legal aid for women facing inheritance theft, emergency grants for single parents, and scholarships for children whose brilliance had been overlooked because poverty made them invisible. Kira taught mathematics there every Saturday. She was still a child, so Amara made sure she played, rested, and did homework like everyone else. But when Kira stood at the chalkboard explaining fractions to younger students, even adults stopped to listen. Noah came often. At first he pretended it was only for math. Then he admitted he came because the center felt warmer than the mansion. Sometimes he cried when a memory of Marion caught him suddenly, her favorite song playing from a passing car, the scent of vanilla soap, a mother hugging her son at the gate. When that happened, Kira sat with him. "Start with what helps," she would remind him. Lily volunteered in the reading room. She and Amara spoke often, not as rich girl and poor rescuer, but as two people tied by a day both had survived differently. Lily once asked if Amara hated the accident. Amara thought carefully before answering. "I hate what people did after it," she said, "but I do not hate saving you." Lily cried then, and Amara held her. As for Clarissa and Vanessa, their fall became the cautionary tale they once believed belonged to others. The courts restored Amara's property. The fraudulent loans consumed what remained of their money. Vanessa's foreign life unraveled under investigation, and the people who once praised her success stopped taking her calls. They moved from one relative's house to another until even relatives grew tired of their complaints. Clarissa, who had mocked Amara's one-room life, learned the humiliation of asking for a mattress on someone else's floor. Vanessa, who had worn stolen opportunity like perfume, discovered that borrowed status fades quickly when truth opens the windows. One afternoon, nearly a year after Dorian came to their gate, Clarissa appeared outside the learning center. She looked smaller, not humble exactly, but worn down by consequences. Amara saw her from the office window and went outside. For a while, neither spoke. Clarissa's eyes moved over the building, the children, the sign with Amara's name beneath director. "So now you are important." Amara did not answer. "I need help," Clarissa said stiffly. There it was, not an apology, not remorse, only need. Amara remembered herself at the embassy gate. She remembered asking for mercy and receiving mockery. She remembered Kira's hungry face. She remembered spilled rice. Then she thought of the kind of woman she wanted Kira to become. "I will not give you my house," Amara said. "I will not give you my silence. I will not lie for Vanessa. But the center has a legal clinic and a food program. You may register like everyone else." Clarissa recoiled. "You want me to stand in line?" "Yes, I am your stepmother." Amara looked at her calmly. "Then you should be grateful I know how to be kinder than one." Clarissa's lips trembled with anger, but hunger is stronger than pride. She went to the line. From the classroom window, Kira watched. "Are you okay, Mama?" she asked later. Amara smiled. "I am free." That evening, Dorian visited the center carrying a framed photograph. It showed the day of the opening. Amara cutting the ribbon, Kira grinning beside Noah, Lily holding her silver butterfly pin, and Dorian standing slightly behind them, not as the hero of the story, but as a witness to the woman who had been won long before he arrived. "I brought something else," he said. He handed Amara a sealed envelope. She looked wary. "What is it?" "A scholarship offer," he said. "Not charity, a partnership. The Institute abroad reviewed your case after the fraud report. They are willing to reinstate your training path through a remote and exchange program. You can study while continuing your work here, then travel for short sessions when ready. Kira can come with you during the summer portion." Amara stared at the papers. For years she had buried that dream because touching it hurt. Now here it was, not the same as before, but alive. "I am older now," she whispered. Dorian smiled faintly. "So is the dream. That does not mean it died." Kira threw her arms around her mother. "Mama, you always tell me numbers are patient if you solve them step by step. Maybe dreams are too." Amara laughed through tears. Outside, rain began to fall, soft against the roof. It reminded her of the day she found the money, the day she saved Noah, the day the world tested whether poverty had made her desperate enough to abandon her values. It had not. Months later, on the anniversary of the accident that first brought them together, Dorian invited Amara and Kira to the Blackwood home. Not the cold mansion Priscilla had ruled with perfume and suspicion, but a changed house. Marion's photographs had returned to the walls. Lily's laughter moved through the halls again. Noah's room had a chalkboard where Kira had written, "What you do to one side, you must do to the other." At dinner, Noah stood and cleared his throat. "I want to say something," he announced. Everyone turned. He looked at Amara, "Thank you for saving me." Then he looked at Kira, "Thank you for helping me with math and when I miss Mom." Kira smiled, "You help me too." "How?" "You remind me that rich people can also be lonely." Dorian nearly choked on his water. Lily laughed so hard she had to cover her face. Noah grinned, "That sounds fair." After dinner, Lily took Amara to the garden. The silver butterfly pin shone on Lily's dress. "I used to think heroes arrived loudly," Lily said, "with sirens or cameras or speeches." Amara looked up at the stars. "Most arrive late to something else." Lily understood. Years from then, people would retell the story in many ways. Some would say it was about a poor girl who missed her visa interview. Some would say it was about a billionaire who punished wicked people. Some would say it was about a stolen inheritance, a forged visa, a jealous wife, and $50,000 returned by a woman who needed it more than anyone. But those who knew the whole truth understood something deeper. It was about a woman who kept choosing right, even when wrong seemed to profit faster. It was about a child who turned mathematics into comfort. It was about a grieving boy who found friendship in the place his family least expected. It was about a girl saved from a burning van who grew up and recognized her rescuer. It was about a billionaire who learned that gratitude without justice is only a beautiful word. And it was about the day Clarissa told Amara she should not have played hero. Because 5 years later, that same act of heroism returned with witnesses, documents, court orders, restored property, exposed lies, protected children, and a future no one could steal again. Amara never framed the old visa letter. She kept it in a drawer beside Lily's first thank you note, Noah's improved math test, Kira's scholarship certificate, and a photograph of the learning center on opening day. Sometimes, when life became difficult, she opened the drawer and reminded herself that destiny does not always arrive on time. Sometimes it misses the interview. Sometimes it crawls from a wrecked van. Sometimes it looks like a wet envelope full of money you refuse to keep. Sometimes it is a child at a chalkboard saying fairness must happen on both sides. And sometimes, after years of silence, it returns through the same door cruelty once kicked open. Only this time, it does not come begging. It comes carrying justice.